But you should pick something stronger that's really predictable.
That's a really tight spot.
Don't worry, I used to hate parallel parking.
Me too.
Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you, all of you.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell your mama hungry.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties through its programs Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
For 200 years, Montgomery, Alabama has been making history by people who had the courage to stand up for change. Today, this riverfront city has been reborn, embracing the past and looking forward to the future. From the National Memorial for Peace and Justice to the stage of the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, this is where history was and is made. We are proud to call Montgomery home, and together, we can be the change.
Are you ready? It's time. The inaugural Urban NerdCon is coming to Montgomery, Alabama, July 29th through the 31st.
World, what's happening? Rob Morgan here. Just letting you know, July 29th through the 31st, I'll be at Montgomery, Alabama, Urban NerdCon. Come on out, get something signed, take a photo, say hello, let's share some stories and create some memories, you know? Peace.
So join us by visiting theurbannerdcon.net for ticket and vendor information. This will be the premier blurred event in the universe. TheUrbanNerdCon.net. Our heroes, our villains, our stories, everyone's con. See you there.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service with Slow Burn. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. It's more than a mobile lounge. It's an environment and an experience rich in history, luxury, and personality. An elegant extension of any celebration occasion. It's the perfect escape and meeting place, a space where you can relax or enjoy a shared passion. Have Slow Burn plan your next big event, or before you are planning to celebrate your win over your athletic rival, you can shop our collections at www.slowburnwaco.com.
But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah.
One bite of 100% Angus beef ballpark frank, and you'll say, hello, summer. Oh yeah, it's ballpark season.
Q Time is our classic Atlanta soul food restaurant located in the historic West End.
Q Time Soul Food is a family business started by Fred and Christine Crenshaw. Come on in, relax, and sink your chops into our tantalizing, mouth-watering, distinctive soul food with a twist, the Q Time way. 1120 Ralph David Abernathy Boulevard, or call your order in at 404-758-2881. Do you miss your mama's cooking? Then come on down to Q Time, an Urban Passport member.
Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Mike is still out on assignments, but we have Charles Bishop holding up for both of them. We're going to make it work. So welcome to episode 279, Inside HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from the NAIA to the NCAA. We share insights on the information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs in the business of HBCU sports. Let me say that again, the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, filming from our home studios and sending a signal live to our KCOH 1230 AM studios with the Texas Radio Hall of Famer, Ralph Cooper, multi-Hall of Famer in the beautiful home of Texas Southern University, as we simulcast on the radio there. As I said, I'm excited about the show today because we're going to go into some numbers. You know, talk about the business. You get it nowhere else. We're going to make sure you get a better understanding on the finance side, because the person we got tonight, this brother is sharp. Not only can he tell you about the business side from a practical position, but he's also becoming a researcher and climbing that mountain as he's getting it done in his doctoral program on the business side, so he can tell you about the research capacity too. So we'll bring him in our second segment, and we're going to go all deep into the math, as we say, the dominoes and all those kind of things. We'll make sure y'all count. We ain't just talking about 5, 10, 15, 20. We're going to go a little deeper than that. So today's episode of Inside HBCU Sports Lab is sponsored by THG Agency, LLC. THG Agency is a company that provides sporting and educational consulting and data analytics. Yeah, we're going to go into some analytics today. I'm excited. You see me fired up, Charles. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Doc. I'm doing well. Good. Excited about getting into today's show. Like I said, we talk not only sports itself, but the business of sports. So getting into the finite issues within sports management, man, that's always fun.
Oh, yeah. You know, I get lathered up when we start talking about that. Let me take a shout out before we get into some of the latest news of the day and see your thoughts on some things or what you want to share out there that is really creative and going into your thought process. But Jalen Riley, I should say, Anthony Johnson, Noel Price, Carol Killer. Mary Allen says hello to everybody. Paul Edmond. Carol says, okay, Dean, ready to listen. Well, let's get it in. John Richardson, Chuck Hunt is always in the building. Brother Wendell Davis, I see you. Anthony Johnson says, okay, Doc, yeah, you know, I'm doing my Charles Bishop impersonation with my little you know, I got to, every once in a while, I got to show out a little bit. You know what it is. You know what it is.
That's my signature look.
Wendell Davis says, good luck, good evening to the lad. What did you say, Charles?
I said, that's my signature look, the sweater vest.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you got it down. Price here, Lab Time. Good evening, Dean. Hey, Charles. I see you. Good evening, Lab Rats. Oh, man. G-Boo Holland. I like that. That's different. Ricky Burton. Sierra Good sharing some information for Chuck Hunt, trying to pull him in there. I appreciate you, Chuck. Ricky Burton's in the house. Lonnie Shaw. A&T Finest. I see you. I'm in. Let's go. Ralph Holly II. I see you. LaShant Harris. Keep it coming. Keep it coming. Anthony Johnson says, y'all talking stuff equipped managers need to be knowing. Yeah, we're going to make sure you get the information. Clifton the Mayor Jr. With that being said, we got some announcements. Staff promotions. We're getting some promotions. You got to be excited when people get the money, man. And titles, that's all right. Especially with, the gas prices as they starting to dip down. They went down the last couple of days, thankfully. Oh, my goodness. But yes, and cost of things looking good. So with that being said, those staff promotions are in the SWAC. Southwestern Athletic Conference is now staff promotions for the upcoming 2022-23 athletic year. Adina Pula has been elevated to Senior Associate Commissioner for Internal Operations of the Southwest SWAs, I should say. Andrew Roberts has been promoted to Associate Commissioner of Media Relations. And Aaron Mackey has been promoted to the Chief Financial Officer, CFO, in terms of his titles. Remember, Andrew Roberts and Adina Pula were here at Texas Southern University.
Yes,
went over
indeed.
there with the SWAC commissioner not too long after he was announced. Dr. Charles McCullen, the SWAC commissioner, is quoted as saying, "We are extremely excited to announce the promotion of these three individuals that have served an integral member of our conference office staff," end quote. He also talks about, quote, "behind any successful league office is a dedicated staff of individuals that go above and beyond to ensure the overall success of the league's operation. The three individuals have exhibited an extremely high level of commitment to the mission, goals, and objectives of the conference. We're related to have the opportunity to acknowledge the efforts with the promotions, and we look forward to having them continue to serve as valued members of our executive staff," end quote. You had a chance to go to any of these events, SWAC football championship game, the basketball game, baseball, in terms of the other sports, obviously, soccer, volleyball, you've seen them working feverishly. And without a doubt, I was out there, as you know, with Deuce. Shout out to Deuce, as I wish him a happy birthday today. Make sure you get that. I want that on the record. He's celebrating his birthday today, had his cake this morning. But getting back to the promotions, when you talk about it, man, I saw them working so feverishly, making sure the tournament goes as well as it was. So a lot of shout out in terms of them making sure that the college athletes get extremely good experience, as well as the coaches and trainers, equipment managers, if you would, all those individuals that are involved, athletic directors, VPs of athletics, presidents and chancellors, making sure they experience a good environment for the SWAC championship. So I wanted to shout them out. With that, I'll go to you, Charles. You can either have some thoughts on that or the next news of the day that you want to share.
Oh, well, no doubt. I want to say congratulations to those individuals. Are very well deserved when you talk about those promotions within the SWAC office. And like you said, Dr. Cavil, they work feverishly to put on great events for the student athletes as well as those around the SWAC. So I definitely want to send a hearty congratulations to all three individuals in terms of their promotions. When we take a look at some things that are going on in and around HBCU athletics, this one caught my eye, Dr. Bill. A very underrated matchup back in 2021, but they will be getting it on again in 2023. North Carolina Central has added Mississippi Valley to their future schedule in 2023. It was one of the more underrated MEAC SWAC games. Valley was able to knock off North Carolina Central last second pass at the very end of the game. They won that game 17-16. So, when we talk about those MEAC SWAC matchups, there isn't always a whole lot for the SWAC to be excited about, but that was one win for the SWAC in the MEAC SWAC in terms of those matchups. So kudos to North Carolina Central and Mississippi Valley State for getting on each other's schedule.
Great point when you talk about that matchup going forward. And that was a thrilling contest there. And shout out to Valley for getting it, representing the SWAC and getting it done. As you said, you talk about those MEAC SWAC matchup, especially when you talk about in the MEAC SWAC Challenge or the Celebration Bowl hasn't gone the SWAC way. shout out to the MEAC getting it done. Regular season was a little different last year, and part of that success was none other than the Delta Devils of Mississippi Valley State. But now they got to hit the road. Sometimes it's a little different on that road, so it'll be fascinating to see what that matchup is as they continue to build going into 2023, as you talked about. Fascinating there. I want to take it off the field since we're talking about a little business, and we're hearing so much turning going around. You have North Carolina Central Athletic Director Perkins selected to the FCS ADA Executive Committee. North Carolina Central University Director of Athletics, Dr. Lewis Skip Perkins, has been selected to the Division I Football Championship Subdivision Athletic Directors Association. FCS ADA Executive Committee, FCS ADA, announced this past Friday Perkins and North Carolina Central alumnus, former student athlete who began his tenure as North Carolina Central Athletics Director, will start his new tenure as you would June 1st. In alignment with that, I'll go ahead and talk about this. You also have on the SWAC side with UAPB ADs Robinson selected the FCS ADA Executive Committee as well. University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff Director of Athletics Chris Robinson has been selected to the Division I Football Championship Subdivision Athletic Directors Association, FCS ADA Executive Committee, as we talked about. So shout out to the MEAC representative of North Carolina Central and the SWAC representative of UAPB, AD Robinson. Interesting, fascinating there. Before I shift it back to you, let me shout out some more folks that joined us. We got Edwin Dwight Moore. Good evening, Doc, live from Big D. Willie Alex Hine, always in the building. Good evening, everyone. The CIAA is here just getting off of work. Understand that. Got to get it done in terms of work. Dr. Roderick B. Holmes is in the house checking us out. A.D. Drew is checking us out as he's taking a little bit of vacation. Watching from, he's on the airport. Vacation is over. Time for him to get back to work. Yeah, get back to work, A.D. What the hell you going to take a vacation? Yeah, it's going to be a full season, so you better get it in now. With that, let me shift back to you, Charles. What else you have to share?
Yeah, shout out to HBCU Game Day. Wally Pitt came to us with this story. Clark Atlanta, among the first HBCU, the Nike Dunk colorway. And this is huge. The Nike Dunk is one of the most iconic shoes in sneaker history. And 35 years after the original Be True to Your School sneaker campaign, Atlanta HBCU, Clark Atlanta is set to become one of the first historical Black colleges and universities with its own Nike Dunk colorway. So that's huge news for all our sneakerheads out there.
Yeah, they're pretty nice. Obviously, you have FAMU with those, A&T as well. Shout out to A&T, North Carolina A&T, as well as University in terms of gaining full membership into the Colonial Athletic Association. Obviously, A&T for football will play one last season in the Big South before they transition with the rest of the sports. And that was official as you hear that coming out there, July 1st date that just passed. But in terms of those Clark Atlanta Nike shoes, you know, I collect not just colors of my institutions or my fraternities, shout out for them, but I wear hats from all institutions. You know, I had the Clark Atlanta hat I was showing off a little bit. I might have to bump for those shoes, man. Those clean. Go to HBCU Game Day, and you can get a shot of a couple of those shoes. They have some really good classic pictures. Shout out to Brother Joe Clay as he's checking out class in session, watching from the pier in Seattle. Oh my goodness, it must be nice when folks just get to move around. I need to check and see what's going on. What's the problem? Go ahead, Charles. Share the mic before I get myself in trouble.
Let's get it in. A shout out to Jawan Daniels. This comes to us from Prairie View Athletics, former Prairie View A&M basketball standout, Jawan Daniels. He has been selected to participate in the inaugural HBCU showcase at the 2022 NBA Summer League in Las Vegas beginning Saturday. This comes a quote from him. I'm very excited about being in the first ever HBCU showcase during the NBA Summer League. It gives me a good chance to get looked at not only by NBA and G League scouts, but also international scouts and leagues all around the world. So shout out to Jawan Daniels for his selection to participate in the NBA Summer League in Vegas.
I want to shout out to @Bison for Life on Twitter. He shared the fact that you had 3 Howard Bison that are moving and participating in the Summer League that traveled or have been connected to Howard University, obviously, Maker Marker, that had the 1 year there. Then you have the other two players have to jump up and make sure I give those names. But I want to give a shout out to Bison for Life and some of those folks that's connected. That's a big thing for any program to have players connected to the Howard University played at one time, finding a way to the NBA, even if it's the summer league, to see if they can transition to the next level. So that's big. Before we go into this break and give you a chance to give another shout out, I did want to take it all the way up to the top. Norfolk State President Adams Gaston named to NCAA Board of Governors. Norfolk State University President Dr. Javon Adams Gaston has been named an ex officio member of the NCAA Board of Governors. Quote, Dr. Adams Gaston, decades of experience in higher education will make her a tremendous asset to the Board of Governors, end quote, MEAC Commissioner Sonia Steele said. And we appreciate her representing the MEAC and HBCUs more broadly on that body. HBCUs need to be strong voice in the room, their presence at the table so we can advocate for ourselves when decisions are made. And Dr. Adams Gaston provides that for us. Quote, it is my distinct honor to be selected to serve on the NCAA Board of Governors, end quote, stated by Dr. Adams Gaston said, in quote, in my ex officio role, I look forward to working with my fellow colleagues and advancing and promote intercollegiate athletics. This assignment is even more meaningful as I have been asked to represent the HBCU members of the NCAA. We're among the strongest and most successful institutions for excellence and achievement of African-American college students and all who want the HBCU experience. I'll be a voice, advocate, and conscience in the room impacting the decision-making for all student athletes, college, collegiate athletics, end quote. I like that significant statement there. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into our break because I'm ready to get into the next segment and so we can bring you in and take you inside the numbers and give you some different perspectives of what that really means, particularly from intercollegiate athletics perspective and the university for that matter, as we take it and look from historic white college as well as historically black college. We'll be right back after this quick break.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
Are you ready? It's time. The inaugural Urban NerdCon is coming to Montgomery, Alabama, July 29th through the 31st. Blurs, nerds, and geeks from across the universe will converge on the capital city to see celebrity guests such as The Last Dragon, Timok, Megan Tandy, and voice actor Dave Fennoy.
Hey, how you doing? I'm voice actor Dave Fennoy with a shout out to all my geeks, freaks, and urban nerds. Just want to let you know I'm going to be there and I want to meet you at the Urban NerdCon Gaming and Cosplay event. It's happening July 29th through the 31st in Montgomery, Alabama. Hope you want to meet me as much as I want to meet you.
So join us by visiting theurbannerdcon.net for ticket and vendor information. This will be the premier blurred event in the universe. Theurbannerdcon.net. Our heroes, our villains, our stories, everyone's con. See you there.
Now, you can live in Texas and not have a good red meat blend. Texas Cowboy Dust is designed for steak and other red meats. It's out to be my most popular spice blend, made with onions, peppers, ground mushrooms, pink salt, and other spices. Texas Cowboy Dust also goes great with chicken, pork, vegetables, and adds a restaurant quality sheen to gravies and sauces.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
Vanilla smoked sea salt seasoning is for seafood. The tarragon and fennel bring out the natural sweetness in seafood. I also use it in rice dishes, on yams, asparagus, blueberry pancakes, and believe it or not, chocolate chip cookies. Vanilla smoked sea salt adds a salty and savory component to sweet dishes that create a symphony for the tongue.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We have our guest, Mr. Derek McGee, soon to be Dr. Derek McGee. We're going to speak it into existence. Recently appointed as North Carolina Central University Associate Vice Chancellor of Campus Enterprises. Since FAMU is not in the MEAC anymore, you know, we can make sure that you can show love. He not only finished at Florida A&M, coming out of their health and kinesiology program over there, getting it done in a lot of ways. Played basketball down there. And we had a little pre-talk out there, and that was pretty good talking about that pass. And you know, you got alphas in the building, you got a Phi Beta Sigma in the building, and then you know you gotta watch that. He gonna bring some of that red life to Kane. You know, oh Lord, Kappa Alpha Psi. Somebody just had to pretty it up a little bit. You know, oh man, too much. But we kid because we care here. But among your many of his responsibilities, his free time is he's also currently, as I said, pursuing a Doctor of Business Administration degree from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. We'll get into a little bit of that in terms of this dissertation. Essentially, when we look at that, the purpose of his study is to first extend the current body of sport management literature pertaining to escalation of commitment to a failing course of action and the permanent failure. What does that look like? What does it mean? By building an existing literature and conducting my own research, he will look to distinguish between escalation of commitment and permanent failure to see what point of escalation behavior does permanent failure begin. Just talk about that. For those that don't realize, as I said, he's provide leadership and vision and management support of campus enterprises. In a lot of ways, people may be a little more familiar with that in terms of business auxiliary services, as he was able to negotiate a nice title there. That means he probably financially did well for himself. But we're not going to get too far in his pockets. But with that being said, before we go any further, welcome to the show, Derek.
I appreciate you having me on today.
So let's talk a little bit about your HBCU experience, playing basketball and going to FAMU before we get into some of this real talk. Let some of the folks kind of know a little bit about yourself, where you're from maybe, and again, your experiences at FAMU.
Gotcha. Well, I was recruited from Jackson, Mississippi to, the highest of 7 hills in Tallahassee, Florida, back in 1995, Doc. And
Charles, he got it out of Jackson. Y'all.
What high school in Jackson?
I went to Jim Hill High School in Jackson, Mississippi.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I know you know Neely then.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Small world.
Small world. Oh, yeah, small world.
Connections happen all over the place, guys.
Yes, indeed.
Definitely, my HBCU experience was just life-changing for me. Now, I was no stranger to, the HBCU setting because my mom actually worked at Jackson State for over 34 years before she retired. And so I was always on Jackson State's campus, almost every day because Jim Hill and Jackson State were only about 1.5 miles apart from each other. And so I would walk from Jim Hill over to the old gym and play every day after I got out of school, if we didn't have practice. And so got to Tallahassee there in the fall of 95, played with some pretty good players, won a MEAC championship in 1999, which was my senior year, and then went on and coached for, one of my favorite people, Mickey Clayton, who, I give a plug to him also too, because he's like a second to me. And he has his show Insights that we always are on as well. But he coached us to a conference championship, got a chance to play Duke in the first round of the NCAA tournament. It didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, but we can say we made it there.
There you go. Duke is Duke. So we understand where they look. But the fact that you made it there, and I remember that run now in terms of that, as you were going through the MEAC tournament, getting it done, I was like, wow, fascinating. As I set this up before I let Charles jump in here, those that don't realize when you look at the operation side, responsibilities include dining services, university bookstore, Eagle Card office, right? Mail services, ticket office, Eagle Copy, Central Graphics, passport services. Yeah, HBCUs, we're international now. and we do our study abroad, marketing, concessions, and vending. So I'm really fascinated about what are those roles and responsibilities. Before we talk about this specifically, as you talked about your college experience, I know you also started in a lot of ways in athletics. As you moved from coaching, you went into athletic administration, but it seems to pull you this pathway here. Talk a little bit about what does it mean to be an athletic administration? What does that look like? What's important about that, and how is that unique and different in terms of the business side of it?
I had my opportunity to cut my teeth on college athletics early on. When I was coaching, as you know, sometimes HBCUs, we have to wear multiple hats. So I was working as an assistant coach, and then also helping out in the ticket office and helping out in the athletic business office for our former AD, Ken Riley, who was there when I was there. So that really got me interested on the administrative side. And so I realized very early that I wanted to be an administrator, not necessarily a coach. And so I have almost 20 years of experience working in college athletics on a Division I level, from Florida A&M, University of Pacific out in Stockton, California, the University of Cincinnati, where I was the chief business officer there, Alabama State, where I was senior associate AD for finance there. And then actually at North Carolina Central, I was the deputy athletic director and chief financial officer before they moved me over to Campus Enterprises to help out in that division. And so in terms of being an athletic administrator, it's just a tremendous and vital role needed, because we're here to support those student athletes and those coaches so that we can help them achieve their dreams and goals, which is to graduate, number one, and hopefully win championships and have a positive experience on that collegiate campus.
Charles, let me let you jump in here and ask the question before we take a deeper dive into that dissertation work and make the connection of how I had the pleasure to meet Derek.
Well, yeah, I know we're going to take a deeper dive, but as a proud former Murrah Mustang, I just wanted to say, hey, welcome into the show. Hey, you know what? I just real quick, Jackson, Mississippi basketball in the early 90s to mid 90s, and you're a part of it. Just talk about real quick how much of a mecca Jackson basketball was back then.
Every high school game, every college game in Jackson was a show. From Lindsey Hunter there at Jackson State to Al Ford there at Mississippi Valley. We had just some tremendous battles. Being at Jim Hill through my tenure there, we weren't that good my freshman year, but my junior and senior year, we were actually really, really good, playing against Murrah and Lanier, and Callaway, then going out to the country playing against Clinton and Pearl and Brookhaven. It was battles every time. And every time you stepped on the court, you knew you could be beat. And the level of basketball that was happening in the late 80s and the early 90s in Jackson, Mississippi was second to none in the country. You had guys there that were going to the NBA. My cousin Eric Dampier got drafted number 10 in 1996. You had Othello Harrington and Murrah. You had Jesse Page and Ronnie Henderson. Oh man, I remember those guys. Ronnie was like 6'4" with like a 48-inch vertical.
Yeah, that was a different time. That was an amazing time to be in Jackson, especially soaking in that basketball culture, and to be a part of it. It was a special time. So I just wanted to touch on it real quick, but let me turn attention to
they said you have to do that. They tease you after, Charles. They said you was gonna do that. They out here Charles is gonna have to find a way to put Murray in.
I couldn't help myself.
They know you. They know you. Lab listeners know you.
Yes, indeed. And I wanted to ask this question, Derek, in terms of the research itself, and this escalation of commitment theory is a term that jumped out at me. Can you kind of explain what that means?
First and foremost, I had to put what I learned in the practice sense into a business model for business program. And so the framework had to be something that related to athletics, as well as could relate to any other type of business organization. And so the escalation framework, which was one that's widely used in not just business literature, but sport management literature, looks at kind of those phases that departments go through in terms of funding. And then it gets to a point where you may fund a program to a point where those dollars aren't having significant enough impact on the program where they could be rediverted or placed into another program that could help boost it up. Maybe a perfect example might be you might have a championship caliber basketball program, and you might be funding it at, I don't know, $4 million a year, which when you take into consideration scholarships and you're looking at salaries and operational dollars, and they're winning championships and they're really, really excelling. And then you say to yourself, okay, if I pay my coach, another $100,000, will that yield me, will that return on investment yield me more championships? Will I be able to maintain this level of success? Or am I really just putting good money on top of bad because I don't really know what to expect, because we're going off of previous organizational success. And so escalation looks at how you're actually funding items, what course that they're taking, are they already at where they need to be in terms of success level, and how are we determining what success is? And so that's specific to any program, but escalation really is that kind of that business model that just really kind of pulls everything together because it has so many determinants in it that you can look at, and those determinants may be prospective, looking at the future, they may be retrospective, looking at past, or they may be kind of where we're at consistently now in terms of, just success, previous success, perceived collective efficacy in terms of what the program and how it's doing. And, it's just a massive undertaking and looking at it when you're talking about research.
Great perspective. And we're going to take a little deeper dive, get into this break. Yeah. We have an illustration about how you break down those variables when you get into some of that. We're going to pull that up and come back on the other side and take a deeper dive, go a little more definitive framework, and have you explain that. Let Charles come up with the secondary question so we can really get into that fascinating, because I know a lot of folks have these questions in terms of moving from FCS to FBS, moving from Division II to FCS. So people have regional analysis that you use that makes sense. Obviously, the cultural affinity from HBCUs is important. Do you do it as a conference within the NCAA rules? And what does that look like as individual teams move up in terms of the governing rules? And so a lot of people have those questions. Obviously, some people are looking at it, moving it, whether it's HBCUs and historically white colleges. So with this graphic, one of the things that you had was your independent variables, looking at total program expenditures, number of head assistant coaches, average head assistant coaches' salaries, athletic aid and recruiting. Your moderators were classification, sector type. Dependent variable 1 was financial performance, total revenue, looking at a specific year in 2019. And dependent variable 2 was non-financial performance, win-loss records, also in the year 2019. We're going to take our quick break, let folks sit and stir on that a little bit. We'll come back, give you a chance to break that down and get into a little more of this so people can really get a different perspective of what it means to understand athletics from a financial side. All these questions they have in terms of important questions of people being excited of what it means to conference churning, realignment in conferences, moving in different divisional direction, whether it's up or down. Winston-Salem State, Savannah State moving from FCS to Division II. Obviously, folks talking about, again, moving up. Stick with us. We'll be right back at this break. We're going to take you into some frameworks that you haven't heard, can't get anywhere else from a different perspective, from a brother, as you see, with his roots in terms of HBCUs that sees this both practical and from a research perspective. Keep with us, stay with us. You can't get this anywhere else.
Oh, that spin class was brutal.
Well, you can try using the Buick's massaging seat.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. Can I use Apple CarPlay to put some music on? Sure. It's wireless. Pick something we all like. Okay, hold on. What's your Buick's Wi-Fi password?
Buick Envision 2021.
Oh, you should pick something stronger. That's really predictable.
That's a really tight spot.
Don't worry. I used to hate parallel parking.
Me too.
Hey.
Really outdid yourself.
Yes, we did.
The all-new Buick Envision, an SUV built around you, all of you.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisines.
Open up the door, tell them mama hungry.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
Yes, this is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. We're here with Derek McGee. He is the Associate Vice Chancellor of Campus Enterprise at North Carolina Central University. I had a chance to be a facilitator on a panel, and that was at the Higher Education Leadership Foundation in Charlotte, North Carolina, a couple of months ago, where Mr. Derek McGee was a panelist, where we were looking at, quote, the value add of college athletics using qualitative, quantitative data analysts, I should say, end quote. And you really brought it home when you were using your research to really talk about the experience and practical side. And you were speaking to athletic directors, presidents in the room, right? Some academics, what that looked like. And so I thought it was really important to be able to bring that to the table. Talk a little bit about the experience there and what your thoughts were in terms of that panel and why it was important to bring these individuals together, mostly of HBCUs, to talk about not just this panel, but other ones similar to it as well.
Almost, if we understand the financials of athletics, then we can make the best decision possible for our program to help move them forward. I am in no way or shape or form promoting that we should defund athletics. I think actually we should be doing more for athletic programs because they really are a front porch for our institutions. And they really do provide a non-financial benefit to the institution that really can't be quantified when you're looking at the numbers. Let me give you a perfect example. At North Carolina Central, our men's basketball coach, he has had tremendous success with basketball. We've gone to the NCAA tournament on multiple occasions, NIT. We've had the opportunity to play in the play-in game. We've had tremendous success. But when you look at the advertising that we're getting when we're on that big stage, or we're playing against those big teams, or when we knocked off NC State, I think it was back in 2013, you can't pay for that exposure. You can't pay for those headlines on ESPN. Those are non-financial, quantifiable metrics that have to be taken into consideration when athletic programs, especially at the HBCU level, are being funded. Now, from a financial standpoint, we have to look at where is our money being invested? How are we spending dollars? How are we recruiting these students? How are we taking care of the students so that they have a tremendous experience there on our college campuses? They get an education and they move on to be productive citizens in life. And so I've always been a big proponent of dumping just tremendous dollars and fully funding the scholarship piece and giving coaches the dollars they need to go out and recruit top level student athletes and making sure that they have an opportunity to play on our campuses. And then you have to look at facilities, and then you can look at kind of salaries and things of that nature there. So you got to look at them from a rational perspective and what's going to give you the most impact in your program.
Go ahead, Charles. I see you have a follow-up. Let's get into it.
Well, it is a very simplistic question, Derek. Is it a cultural thing with regards to presidents at HBCUs understanding the financial impact that athletics has on the institution as a whole?
I've made it my point over the past 15 years to try to bring that value add of athletics, specifically when I was at the HBCU level, in front of the presidents that I've served, or the trustees, so that they understand from a quantifiable number standpoint, really what we bring to the table. I'll give you a perfect example, Charles. At North Carolina Central, we looked at the dollar value of those walk-on student athletes that are coming to North Carolina Central to play a sport. Now, normally they may not have chosen to come to North Carolina Central because they may have had an opportunity to go to other institutions, but they chose to come to Central so that they could play at Central, which means they may not be fully scholarship. They may be a partial scholarship student. They may be a full walk-on student, but that has a quantifiable dollar metric placed on it for housing, for meals, for athletic fees, tuition. There's a quantifiable number there. I think it was, back in 2017, I did a presentation, and we looked at the bottom line when we took in consideration those student athletes that were on scholarship, those student athletes that were receiving partial scholarships, and those student athletes that were paying their way to go to school. They were part of our Division I intercollegiate athletic program. We were basically bringing an additional $5.8 million to the bottom line as the institution.
Wow.
It was above and beyond what we were already doing in terms of ticket sales, game guarantees, what we were doing in terms of corporate sponsorships, and the other areas from our conference distribution, our NCAA distributions. And when we talk about going to the NCAA tournament, there was significant dollars that we were bringing to the institution to justify the subsidies that are being brought to our program, our division, our department. And I tell everybody all the time, I said, there's only about 2.3% of Division I programs, well, actually not even Division I programs, of all programs, whether Division I, II, III, NAIA, or whomever, that are financially solvent. And so when only 2.3% are financially solvent, that means those dollars to help balance that budget have to come from somewhere. And the research that I'm trying to do now is to basically show from a practitioner standpoint the value that these programs have to the institution, just beyond playing basketball, playing football, and bringing people together. But there's a financial impact that they have on the institution as well.
$1 million question. How does athletics keep the majority of that money that they bring into the institution? How can it stay within the athletic department?
Well, first and foremost, most athletic departments, I would say probably about 80 to 90% of athletic departments in the country are ran as auxiliaries. And so that's one of the reasons why I've always been so intrigued about being on the business and auxiliary side, as well as being on the athletic side. So the past 23 years, I've done nothing but work in athletics and work on the campus side of business and auxiliary services, because they're one and the same. I tell everybody, I said, you eat what you kill. And so you have to go out and raise dollars. You have to be proactive. When you're saying keep those dollars in the department, I think a lot of the institutions are doing a decent job of bringing those dollars in, but it's how they're being distributed back to the program. And so when you're doing that, you have to look and see, okay, from a budgetary standpoint, is the university subsidizing that program to a tune of $3 or $4 or $5 million? And so when those game guarantee dollars come in, or when those dollars come in from the conference office or wherever they may be from donations or whatnot, is the institution using that to cover that subsidy? Or are they saying from that subsidy they're giving, okay, this is the value that we know you have and the impact we know you have on the institution. Take these dollars and go and promote and be ambassadors for our school. And here's what your cut is. And then anything above and beyond that, you have to stand on your own 2 feet and make it work. And that's when the budgeting piece comes in, and the financial aspect is just key, and knowing where you're placing your dollars so that they have the most impact on your programs.
Great point. You just talked about the impact and importance of the sport, particular how it looks at the intercollegiate level, which is part of your study. The theoretical framework, we discussed a little bit that you're using, sport management literature that extensively studies escalation of commitment theory. You talked about that in terms of that framework, which is, I think, very important when you talk about intercollegiate athletic industry. What does that look like? We want to take a little bit more off levity, if you would. Then we can close after we take a quick break and allow you to kind of put your final capping on this. But I'm sure that you had a little bit of mixed emotion when everything came down in terms of Florida A&M making the move from the MEAC to the SWAC, in terms of that relationship. Can you talk about a little bit of how you look at those numbers and how they spoke to you from just a outside observer looking at that, just so people that are trying to understand when these decisions are churning or being made, how do you look at it? Obviously, there is an important cultural component to it. Finances is another part of it, regional travel, different things like that. But people can see those in terms of making those decisions in many different ways. So I think it'll be intriguing for us to get a perspective from a practitioner and expert that has lived all types of variables of what this looked like, and getting your experience from that versus maybe some of us that do not have that experience and look at it just purely from a business or just purely from a cultural perspective.
I'll say this as a proud Rattler, having won a MEAC championship, having played in the MEAC in my career, having coached in the MEAC, I was taken back by the decision to move from an alumnus standpoint. But from a business standpoint, I understood the decision 100%. When you talk about proximity to institutions that are like size, they have the same mindset. I think the move to the SWAC was a solid one for Florida A&M. They kept their partnership with Bethune-Cookman, which is a major game for them when you talk about the Florida Classic, and having that travel partner, and then the opportunity then to play institutions like Jackson State and Grambling and Southern, Texas Southern, Alabama State. It just provided more of a financial impact in terms of ticket sales also too. The one thing you have to look at is how do you travel as an institution, and how do the conference travel to you, because who you bring into your stadium has a direct impact on your bottom line also too. So scheduling is a huge factor. And I can tell you for a fact, if Jackson State comes into Tallahassee, that game will be a sellout. And that's what you're trying to do. From an experience standpoint, you want every game to feel like homecoming. And as HBCU alums, we all know how homecoming is. And so if you can get every game to have that homecoming atmosphere, that means you have patrons at your game. That means you're selling tickets. That means you have opportunities to upsell your sponsorships and collect dollars from that. So there's a huge revenue, piece to that I understand 100%. And so for Florida A&M to make that move to the SWAC, now everybody's saying the SWAC is the SEC of Black college football. It was a solid move for them to do. And I know that there had been conversations about that when I was actually in school about to the Southwestern Athletic Conference because of those same factors. And if you guys remember, they opted to move up to FBS for a short period of time to test the waters before coming back down to FCS.
Oh, great point. Man, it's magical. We're going to take our last break. We'll get back, bring Mr. Derek McGee, Dr. Derek. I want to put that on there. We're going to live that because you're going to earn that. That's going to be a beautiful thing in terms of all the things that you're putting on the table. Man, beautiful conversation here. Let's take our last break and we'll come back with our guest.
2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties. Through its programs, Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
For 200 years, Montgomery, Alabama has been making history by people who had the courage to stand up for change. Today, this riverfront city has been reborn, embracing the past and looking forward to the future. From the National Memorial for Peace and Justice to the stage of the Alabama Shakespeare Festival, this is where history was and is made. We are proud to call Montgomery home, and together, we can be the change.
Are you ready? It's time. The inaugural Urban NerdCon is coming to Montgomery, Alabama, July 29th through the 31st.
World, what's happening? Rob Morgan here. Just letting you know, July 29th through the 31st, I'll be at Montgomery, Alabama, Urban NerdCon. Come on out, get something signed, take a photo, say hello, let's share some stories and create some memories, you know? Peace.
So join us by visiting theurbannerdcon.net for ticket and vendor information. This will be the premier Blurred event in the universe. TheUrbanNerdCon.net. Our heroes, our villains, our stories, everyone's con. See you there.
Press the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna law, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
I wanted to come back and bring back up the model that we teased out a little bit and give you a chance to break this down of why these are important in terms of research and all that we've talked about in the last couple of segments. So as we bring that model up for everybody to see, go ahead and start breaking down that model and explain why it's important for us to connect and understand this model.
So what I want to look at first is those independent variables, because those are key for what we're looking at and trying to do. When we talk about head coaches' salaries, assistant coaches' salaries, when we talk about the dollars that we're spending from a recruiting standpoint, these are all key indicators, and these are also key expenditures that hit our athletic departments year in and year out. And so when I looked at everything, I wanted to kind of tease out from an independent standpoint, total programmatic expenditures, and say to myself, okay, we're going to take a point in time from 2015 to 2019. We did everything pre-COVID so that we could get true numbers based on what we were doing. In terms of looking at my moderators, from a classification standpoint, that's whether a program is FCS, FBS, or Division I non-football. Keeping in mind that my study only primarily looked at Division I do in the future, after I have everything committed and I'm Dr. McGee, I'll look at Division II, Division III, and some other areas. But then
that's right.
Our sector, which is if it's a public or private institution, and then the type, in which I look at the HBCU versus the PWI comparison. When looking at my dependent variable of financial performance, I looked at that point in time in 2019 and said to myself, okay, we have data from 15 to 19. Let's look and see if there's a significance of these independent variables that impact and shows an escalation pattern in 2019. And so when I looked at it, I looked at athletic aid and recruiting. There was a significance there of impact in terms of escalation. But also, too, when we look at in my dependent variable is going to be post hoc, my dissertation, we're looking at also pulling together and looking at the wins and loss records of some of the programs that we're analyzing, we saw that those programs that had invested in the student athlete and the experience, they normally had more success from a win-loss standpoint. And so, you know, that was a significant factor for me when
No doubt. No doubt. With that, as we're up on it and close, I wanted to give you the floor and give you a final chance to kind of tie this up in a bow. And what do you want our viewers to understand when they look at athletics, particularly from a business financial perspective? One of some of the things that they should keep in mind as they are following the sports. Obviously, the wins and losses are measured and they're easy to see. But what other parts should we also be considering, particularly when we are hearing all this news with the conference churning? It really has a lot of folks, some up in arms, some excited, whether it's not just HBCUs, obviously, but also some of what I refer to as historically white colleges and universities, particularly at the Power 5 level. What would you like to close out and share with us?
I just want to emphasize the non-financial benefit of our HBCUs, number one. That non-financial benefit of bringing back our alums to campuses for specialized events. And I tell everybody, I said, if there was not a homecoming, what would the institution do to replace it? And that's one of the indicators in my literature review, is that that's why college athletics, especially at the HBCU level, is so dynamic, because we do not have any other entity on campus that can replace it and still bring our alums together, still foster and bring in the donations that come to the institution. When you're talking to your business school, your school of education, your school of law, those donors normally have an affinity for the school, but they also have an affinity for the athletic program as well. So when you tie in athletics with your institutional advancement department, with your alumni affairs department, with your marketing and communications department, and you really integrate your collegiate athletic program into the fabric of the institution, you can only go up from there, because they're going to be your ambassador. You're putting those student athletes first and telling them, hey, not only are we expecting you to go out and do the work in the classroom and on the court or on the field, but we also want you to be a brand ambassador for our institutions. And I think that's where really, when you start talking about NLI and looking at, you know, these student athletes and having their own brands, things of that nature there, that becomes more and more important, that we focus on those students and tell them that they're representing the institution, they're representing themselves and their families, the athletic department, and they're the catalyst that can help move these programs forward if we put a significantly good experience for them in place. And that goes back to funding the departments the way they need to be funded, supporting them the way they need to be supported, so that they can really be, like I said before, the front porch of our institutions.
With that being said, we're going to come to a close. I would tease it out a little bit and ask you about the Eagle, or I'm sure on that side they say Eagle Aggie Classic, the Mayo Classic. Where are your allegiance? Where are you going? But I think we know that answer. But then you have the Orange Blossom Classic, where at Jackson State and Florida A&M. I could ask you where you're going on that, but I think that's pretty easy, and you kind of showed the answer.
Those are easy answers, Doc. You got the Eagles and the Rattlers, baby.
Yeah, that would be an interesting matchup. In the Celebration Bowl, FAMU and Eagles, but there are a lot of teams in the MEAC in terms of the SWAC that feel that they're going to have a different thing there. But hey, we will have you back if you make that happen. And you said it right here. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. I am Dr. Kenyatta, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Hope you enjoyed our guest, Derek McGee. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest news of the lab. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's DrKenyatta Cavil on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's DrKenyatta Cavil. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1 on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube is Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Want to make sure you like, subscribe, download my JBN, my BCSN app. Dream big and continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Charles?
Of course.
Derek? Dismiss.